time has expired. We're going to move to question time. Senator Wong.
I seek leave to make a statement concerning parliamentary office holders and ministerial arrangements for question time.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
I thank the Senate. I inform senators that Senator Darmanin will be the acting Chief Government Whip in the absence of Senator Sheldon from 24 November to 27 November 2025, and I thank her for taking on that role again. I also advise changes to ministerial arrangements. Minister McCarthy will be absent from question time today. She's unable to travel as a consequence of the tropical cyclone. In the absence of Minister McCarthy, ministers will represent portfolios at question time in accordance with the letter circulated to the President and party leaders and independent senators.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Ruston.
I seek leave to make a very short statement in relation to responsibilities in the chamber for the opposition.
Is leave is granted? Leave is granted, Senator
Thank you.
Ruston.
I wish to advise that Senator Cash is still unable to travel and will not be present for the remainder of this week and into next week for estimates, and in her absence I'll be acting as the leader.
Thank you. Please pass on our regards. Speedy recovery. We'll move to question time. Senator Collins.
Thank you, President. My question is to Minister Ayres, the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Minister, recently ANZ CEO Mr Nuno Matos told the House of Representatives Economics Committee that, and I quote, "Some still believe net zero by 2050 is possible, but I would say at this point in time it seems difficult to reach with the current dynamics, with the current technologies, with the current public stance in many parts of the world." He also said that net zero by 2050 could be the medicine that kills the patient. Quote, Minister, do you disagree with Mr Matos' assertion that net zero by 2050 may be the medicine that kills the patient?
Thank you, Senator Collins. Minister Ayres.
Well, it's always good to get a question from the Chatswood Willoughby Industrial Complex over there. I don't agree with Mr Matos' assertion. I don't agree with Mr Matos' assertion, nor do I agree with the proposition that has been advanced in such a disorderly way towards what would happen if those opposite ever got onto the Treasury benches again, a disorderly transition. And the truth is that the set of obsessions, imported ideological obsessions that have driven the madness of the internal approach there is driven by this impulse for drama, this impulse for sort of social media attention, not an impulse to act in the best interests of Australians. And that wrecking impulse that is so fundamental to the identity of the Liberal and National parties today, the problem with it is that adopting that approach hurts ordinary Australians. It hurts ordinary Australians. It damages blue-collar jobs. It damages industry. And the indolence—
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Collins.
Just a point of order on relevance.
Thank you. I will draw the minister back to the question. Thank you, Senator Collins. Minister Ayres.
Just I said no, I don't agree with that proposition. I'm not sure how more relevant I could be to the question, Senator. The problem is it is so hard to look away from the sort of series of catastrophes that have been happening over there on the political front. The real risk to Australians, the real risk to Australian living standards, to industry, is the sort of arc of activity from there to over there that spells sovereign risk, that spells disinvestment. And if you want to have a look at what it would look like—
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Collins, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, last week Rio Tinto sacked 180 workers and cut production at its aluminium refinery to align with Rio's decarbonisation pathway. The Orica CEO also stated that their industry cannot decarbonise with any commercial technology that exists today. Minister, Gladstone Industry is shutting down to align with your government's net zero agenda while they're telling you this transition is not possible. Why is your government pushing a policy that is leading to workers being sacked and industry shutting down?
Thank you, Senator Collins. Just before I call the minister, Senator McKenzie, you have started up with a running commentary. You need to be silent. Minister Ayres.
Well, that is, I want to frame this properly, an utterly dishonest question. Utterly dishonest. In terms of if you wanted to attribute the decision that Rio Tinto, who run that facility in central Queensland, had in any way to the energy questions that all of our industry faces, that is utterly inappropriate and wrong, and knowingly wrong. They have made a decision at that facility. I don't want to bore you with the details or the facts. They have made a decision at that facility to redeploy 100%.
Senator Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President.
I'm sorry, Senator Ruston. The chamber needs to be quiet. Senator Ruston.
President, I'm just asking whether you might consider the commentary that Senator Ayres is currently using in response to the question is adversely reflecting on an individual in this chamber?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
On the point of order, I submit it is in order to say that a question is dishonest.
Senator Ruston.
On the point of order, I mean, a question actually is an inanimate object. It's words on a piece of paper that have been put there by a person. So to suggest that the question itself is somewhat disassociated with the person that's asking it. So I'd ask you once again if you would reflect on whether that was an adverse reflection on a person.
Thank you. No, Senator Henderson. So, Senator Henderson, no, I'm responding to the no, Senator Henderson. I've asked you to resume your seat. So, Senator Henderson, you are out of order. I've asked you to resume your seat. I am Senator Henderson. In response to your point of order, Senator Ruston, referring to the question itself as dishonest does not fall foul of the general custom in this place. However, I think the latter part of Senator Ayres' response was starting to go that way. So I'll remind the senator of the need to be respectful and to be careful about how he frames his response. Thank you, Senator Ayres.
Utterly disassociated from the reality of the decision that has been made, which is to redeploy 100% of the workers involved for a decision that is about investing in the future capability of that facility. That's what that is about, and it's utterly appalling to misrepresent it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Collins, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, what is your message to the 185 refinery workers that have been sacked to align with your government's net zero by 2050 agenda?
Thank you, Senator Collins. Minister Ayres.
Well, my message is to repeat what it is that I've just said. The assurances that I have been given are that those workers at that
Senator
facility
Canavan.
are being redeployed from some work to other work, because what it is that the company is trying to achieve is to make sure that their waste
Senator
discharge
Canavan.
is stored appropriately, and that they have a plan for the decades ahead to sustain their waste. It's got nothing to do with their emissions, nothing to do with energy. My message to those workers—
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan, I've asked you on a number of occasions to stop interjecting. You are being disrespectful to me. Do not interject. Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan, may I invite you at any other time to make a response? You have Tuesday night for open-ended adjournment if you want to make a response, not at question time. Minister Ayres, please continue.
And my message to those workers is work with your unions work with the local community, work with the business, work with the federal government that backs you and future investment in your sector, not the show that caused so much damage over the last decade.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Whittaker.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. In its first term, the Albanese Labor government laid a strong foundation to build Australia's future. We did this by delivering cost of living relief, strengthening Medicare, making it easier to get a home and helping Australians earn more and keep more of what they earn. How is the government building on these foundations to continue to deliver for the Australian people?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Wong.
Thank you to Senator Whittaker for the question and for drawing attention to the strong foundation that we laid in our first term. And I'm very pleased to report that the government has spent the 6 months since the election delivering for the Australian people. In the first sitting fortnight of this parliament, we legislated our commitment to cut 20% off student debt for more than 5.5 million Australian students and apprentices, and the first round of students are already starting to benefit from this cost of living measure. In August, we legislated to protect penalty rates and overtime pay, and we've expanded paid parental leave by a further 2 weeks. We've started rolling out our biggest ever investment into Medicare, with more bulk billing for more Australians, delivering new incentives so more GP practices can bulk bill every patient. And we are building on the success of the Medicare urgent care clinics by opening even more of these clinics around the country. President, in the first term, we slashed the costs of medicines on the PBS, and in the new year, Australians will have access to even cheaper medicines, because we on this side understand what this means to so many Australians. We understand what the cost of PBS scripts means, and so from the 1st of January 2026, the cost of a PBS script will be cut to the lowest price since 2004, down from $25 down to just $25.07 for pensioners and concession card holders, because we believe no Australian should have to forego the medicine they need because they can't afford it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whittaker, first supplementary.
Australians have faced some tough challenges in recent years, particularly regarding cost of living pressures. Working together, we've seen the government's responsible economic management help ensure inflation has come down, real wages have grown and unemployment remains low. What is the government doing to help Australians continue to earn more and keep more of what they earn?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, as Senator Whittaker reminds us, we have spent the last 6 months building on the strong economic foundations that the government delivered and built in our first term. We all know what the Liberal Party thinks. We all know that the Liberals believe that low wages are a deliberate design feature of the country's economic agenda. So they are for low wages, we are for higher wages. And when it comes to income tax cuts, who can forget at the last election the proud Dutton opposition championing higher taxes? Higher taxes. Whereas the Labor Party, the Labor government, we are delivering income tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer, with more to come. And on July 1st, we delivered another wage increase for aged care workers, introduced paid pack for the next generation of nurses, teachers, social workers and midwives, delivering bonuses for tradies. You want higher taxes, lower wages. We want you to earn more and keep more of it.
Senator Whittaker, second supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government is focused on building on our first-term foundation to build Australia's future. This includes the need to drive down emissions while delivering cheaper, reliable energy. What progress is the government making to build on that progress? And are there any threats that might stand in the way?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Wong.
Well, thank you. Well, we understand the importance of certainty. We understand the importance of certainty, policy certainty, to deliver affordable energy. We understand the importance of energy bill relief, which is why we delivered relief. They opposed it. It's why we are focused on adding supply to the system and, as I said, providing certainty. Support and certainty. That's what we're delivering. What are they delivering? More division. more division. They haven't learned the lesson of the last election, and they certainly haven't changed. We've got the Shadow Minister for Energy gaslighting his moderate colleagues like Senator Ruston and Senator Bragg about coal. And you've got Senator Hanson with her new best friend and apparent successor, Mr Joyce, reportedly coming up with a Liberals' energy policy over dinner. How embarrassing. You have your energy policy worked out by Senator Hanson and Mr Joyce. This is what the Liberal Party has been reduced to, being dictated to by others.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Your time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. So my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I refer to the Prime Minister's correspondence to the states and territories where he demanded that, and I quote, reduce growth in hospital activity and costs to receive additional Commonwealth funding. Minister, which services do the Prime Minister think the states and territories should cut, and which patients should miss out on care?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. We are continuing to negotiate in good faith with the states, and I think Australians do want the states and the Commonwealth to work together to improve hospitals and strengthen Medicare. We are on the record as indicating we have made an offer of an additional $20 billion in hospital funding for the states on top of record funding this year. We want to work with the states to finalise the National Cabinet that they signed up to in December 2023, and we have put a very serious offer on the table. An extra $20 billion over 5 years would bring the total Commonwealth funding expected to public hospitals over the new 5 years to a record $215 billion. We'll continue to negotiate in good faith. We will do our part.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
On direct relevance, my question went specifically to a letter that the Prime Minister sent to the states and territories seeking for them to reduce funding in public hospitals. I was wondering if the Minister might go to that.
The Minister is being relevant to your question, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
The correspondence that you refer to involved precisely the negotiation that I'm describing and precisely the offer of an additional $20 billion that I'm referencing, Senator, so it is entirely relevant. What I was going to go on to say is we will do our part by contributing to increased activity and increased funding. Obviously, the states do have to play their part too to make sure their health systems are efficient and well run. As I said, we'll continue to negotiate in good faith. We've put a substantial additional contribution on the table. We look forward to the states continuing to engage with the Commonwealth in good faith.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, President. Minister, last year only 802 new aged care beds were delivered, despite the need for more than 10,000 every year for the next 10 years. This left thousands of older Australians in hospitals waiting for an aged care bed. Why is the Prime Minister asking the states to cut hospital budgets instead of ensuring medically fit older Australians can leave hospital?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you to Senator Ruston for the question. Well, you're right, Senator. We should be able to access. People should be able to access quality aged care, and we know that the absence of sufficient, or in a situation where aged care services are insufficient, there is pressure on the public hospital regime. And I would remind you, Senator, you are part of a government whose management of aged care was described in one word by the Royal Commission as neglect. Neglect. Now, we are working.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you. Once again, on relevance, I'm actually talking about the last 12 months, not something that happened 5 years ago.
The Minister is being relevant to your question, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, you are one of the people in this place who does understand these issues, and you would know that the $2.5 billion that was cut from aged care by the government of which you were a part, that the consequences of that have been long-lasting. Now, it is the case that we want to have more aged care beds. It is the case that governments know that if you don't have sufficient support for older Australians, it does put pressure on public hospitals.
Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Going to your answer to the first question, could I ask, Does the Prime Minister stand by his clear and unconditional commitment to fund 42.5% of hospital funding by 2030? And if not, what will your government's hospital funding contribution be by 2030?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
As I said, I think in my first answer, we do want to finalise the agreement that all governments signed up to in December 2023. National Cabinet did agree that increasing the Commonwealth's share of public hospital funding would be subject to a reasonable limit on the annual growth in costs. I think the states understand this. That is the best way to ensure we keep our public health system efficient, affordable and strong. We put a very serious offer on the table and we'll keep working with the states.
Minister Wong, had you finished your contribution? Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister pulled Australia out of the race to host next year's International Climate Summit. That global meeting would have brought scrutiny on the fact that Australia is the world's second biggest exporter of climate-wrecking emissions, behind only Russia. That this government has approved over 30 coal and gas mines since coming to office and 5 since the most recent election, and that you're now trying to get coal and gas approved within 30 days under environmental laws without their climate impacts on nature being considered. Is the Australian government's addiction to coal and gas the reason why the Prime Minister stopped pushing to host the COP?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
No, and it's a pity, Senator Waters, that you don't engage more with the Pacific, because, well, it is. You know, it is. You clearly don't talk to Pacific leaders and Pacific ministers, unlike the government, which is engaged directly with the Pacific about this Conference of the Parties. So this is actually what amplifying Pacific voices means. You engage with them to resolve a negotiating position that they are backing. 100%. So just remember, when you wanted to lecture us, that we went down this path both for the bid and all of the detailed negotiations over this last year, in very close discussion with some of the people you don't bother talking to, which is Pacific leaders and ministers. All right? And I know you're too busy lecturing us to actually talk to some of the people who are affected most by climate change, which was our primary motivation in wanting this Conference of the Parties, was to elevate Pacific experience and Pacific voices. And the discussion with Turkey and the discussion in Belém that said that Mr Bone was involved in involved engagement at the Prime Minister, my level and Mr Bone's level and official level to work out, in a circumstance where we were not able to get agreement to our bid, what could we get to ensure that the Pacific's experience, issues and priorities were on the agenda. And that is what Australia has achieved. And I want to thank our Pacific colleagues for working with us and the respectful, decent way in which they have engaged with us on this issue.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Australia just signed the Belém Declaration at COP, which contains the strongest language on phasing out fossil fuels that Australia has ever signed, which incidentally is exactly what the Pacific is asking us to do, that your government isn't doing. When will the government outline its roadmap to transition away from fossil fuels, including coal and gas exports?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
It seems a little inconsistent, if I may say, President, with the first question, but that so be it. The Belém Declaration talks about a roadmap to deliver a fairer transition. It is consistent with our language from the Conference of the Parties in 2023, I think. The Australian position has not changed, and we're supporting the global transition, and we remain a reliable trading partner. Now, these are matters that are challenging. These are matters which do involve a global economic transition and an economic transition for this country. And we understand that that requires policy, requires delivery. It requires us to change the nature of the economy in which we are. You don't do it through bumper stickers, and you certainly do it by making false accusations.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. It was reported over the weekend that many insiders said Australia was in a strong position to win the COP bid, that Minister Bowen had worked hard to get there, and that the Prime Minister had pulled the rug out from him when he gave up to Turkey. Why is the Prime Minister undermining his climate minister and Australia's climate potential?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, there's so much that is incorrect in those assertions. Can I make this point? If you had followed this, Senator, and you may be aware of this, we did have very broad support. You will also know there is no way to avoid or to break the impasse at a conference of the parties, and under the UNFCCC rules, in the absence of that impasse being broken, the conference would have reverted to Bonn, and the COP president would not have been elected until the first day of that conference, which has implications for global climate negotiations and for the Pacific. So these were the real issues that we worked through very carefully with the Pacific, and we're very pleased that we were able to achieve a whole range of propositions, including a pre-COP held in the Pacific with leaders, including pledging for the Pacific Resilience Facility and Pacific engagements in leading aspects of the negotiations. We were very pleased that we were able to achieve that with the support of the Pacific.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. The International Monetary Fund has endorsed the Albanese Labor government's economic and budget strategy, praising Australia's soft landing, strong foundations and ambitious reform agenda. This is a significant vote of confidence in Australians' economic approach during this period of global uncertainty. Can the Minister outline what the IMF said about Australia's performance? How is the government's responsible economic management helping deliver stability, growth and resilience for Australians?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator O'Neill for that question, for a question on the economy, because those over on this side of the chamber understand how important a strong economy is to delivering services and improving living standards for all Australians. And I just take this opportunity to remind those opposite that when we came to opposite, we inherited huge deficits, $1 trillion of Liberal debt, high inflation, falling real wages and falling living standards. That is the situation that we inherited. And Senator O'Neill is right to draw our attention to the International Monetary Fund's report on Australia's economy, including on our budget and fiscal strategy, where it is a powerful endorsement of the approach that we have taken. Inflation is around a third of its peak, debt is down, real wages are growing, unemployment is low, and we've seen the creation of more than 1.2 million jobs. Well, that is not correct, and I know you're a bit of a public sector job snob. I hear it all the time, and so I take that interjection. We know you wanted to sack 41,000 public servants, and we saw how that went down. But also what you do when you demean jobs in the non-market economy, which is what you're saying, you're demeaning everyone who works in the care economy. All of those who work in aged care, they form part of those jobs. They're no good. All those that work in disability, all those that work in early education and care, anywhere where the government provides support for a program, those are the jobs that you are demeaning every single time you say that. And we hear it and those workers hear it. And we won't let them forget it, because every time you stand up here and pretend you care about aged care and health and disability, they're the workers that you're attacking when you say those jobs aren't good enough. Now, the IMF acknowledges the government's—
Thank you, Minister. There's time for answering.
Luckily, I'll get two more cracks.
Senator O'Neill, first supplementary.
Thank you. It's such a big story to tell, Minister. New ABS data shows annual real wages have grown for 8 consecutive quarters, the longest run in almost a decade. Labour force data also shows that more Australians are in work than ever before. How is the Albanese Labor government ensuring this momentum continues so workers share in the benefits of our stronger economy?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
And I thank Senator O'Neill for that question and for acknowledging the working people across our economy, whether it be in market or non-market jobs. New data released by the ABS shows that annual real wages have now grown for 8 consecutive quarters. This is now the longest period of consecutive annual real wage growth in almost a decade. The wage price index grew 0.8% in the September quarter to be 3.4% higher through the year. We're delivering more jobs, better paid jobs, and we support wage increases across the economy, whether, again, you work in the market or non-market economy. We support wage rises, we support good jobs, secure jobs, well-paid jobs. We absolutely dealing with the feminised inequality that we've seen across our wage system as well, and that's why we've supported those substantial wage increases for those sectors.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Neill, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Australia's economy is stronger and more stable than many advanced nations, with the IMF praising our fiscal strategy and reform agenda. How important is it to maintain this responsible approach so we never return to the days of sliding global ranks and missed opportunities for jobs, for wages and for growth?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator O'Neill for the supplementary. When we came to office, real wages were going backwards by 3.5%, and they'd fallen for the 5 quarters leading up to the 2022 election. We knew that because that was a deliberate design feature of their economic policy. Since we came to government, average annualised nominal wages have been growing at 3.7%, much higher than the 2.2% under our predecessors. Inflation was up in 2.1% in the March quarter 2022. We've got inflation back under control. Under those opposite, have a look at your record, Senator Patterson. Go back and have a little look about what happened in the dying days of the Morrison government. Inflation was roaring. We've got it back under band. We've also seen business investment fell, and we're seeing business investment come back. Under Labor, inflation is lower, interest rates have been cut 3 times, unemployment is low.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Science, Minister Ayres. Minister, under your watch, CSIRO has now copped the biggest job cuts in its history. More than 800 jobs lost over the past 18 months and another 350 science jobs to be cut in the months ahead. Both the CPSU and the CSIRO Staff Association has slammed your government, claiming these cuts are worse than under any anti-science, climate-denying LNP government. Genuinely, Minister, this is not something myself or anyone I know at CSIRO thought would be possible. Aren't you ashamed of this?
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator, I think it's important to step through in a careful way what it is that has been undertaken at the CSIRO. It is 15 years since the CSIRO has undertaken a proper strategic examination of its research priorities to make sure that every science dollar and this government every year has allocated close to $1 billion,
Senator McKim,
close to $1 billion to the CSIRO to make sure that every science dollar is allocated to a program of research which is squarely within the national science priorities of the CSIRO and the government. And that is the exercise that the management and the board of the CSIRO have embarked upon.
Order.
It is absolutely in Australia's national interest that the work of the CSIRO is directed absolutely directly at every one of those national science priorities and not in other areas. And that is the work that is going on. And I think that you will discover over the coming weeks and months that the areas of emphasis that the CSIRO and the programs of research that they are leaning into are absolutely in the national interest, absolutely in the interest of strengthening the CSIRO and making sure that it is fit for purpose for the decades ahead.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whish-Wilson, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Let's talk about the national interest. You publicly confirmed on Friday that CSIRO's Environment Research Unit, Climate, Nature, Water, Oceans, is set to bear the brunt of these cuts, with 20% of the unit's staff to be axed. 1 in 5 jobs to go, Minister. Isn't climate science and environment a national priority? You're making big claims about you caring about the environment and delivering environmental law reform, but you clearly don't give a fig about the environment, do you? You should be ashamed of this.
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator, thank you for that question. There is a reprioritisation. And I think that what you will find is that in areas like climate adaptation, in areas of particular focus like zoonotic disease, landscape pests, pathogen science, all of those questions that go to future resilience in terms of pandemics, climate adaptation, and a range of the areas that are squarely within the national interest and the national science priorities, that this is all about strengthening those areas. This is, of course, a difficult process. And these scientists are passionate Australians who are absolutely qualified in their areas of science, and we know that this is very difficult, but it is necessary and important work.
Senator Whish-Wilson, second supplementary.
Minister, what have you got to say to CSIRO staff, scientists, especially young, early career scientists, who are now going into Christmas not knowing if they will have a job next year? What message are you sending to young Australians who are aspiring to be a scientist?
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Ayres.
Well, what I say to young Australians at school or studying at university in the sciences is that you should lean in hard and look hard for a career in the sciences, because it is important for our national interest that there will be a strong, viable, credible, effective national science institution working in a coordinated way with our university sector, our private sector research and our other science institutions on the issues that matter for Australia's future climate security, our future energy security, our future economic resilience, managing diseases, managing imported pests. These are all the priorities that the CSIRO will be focused on, and there's a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan.
Madam President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Minister Ayres. Minister, last week the Australian Energy Council released its Delivering Australia's Energy Transition Affordability report based on a survey of energy sector CEOs. In this survey, one retail energy sector CEO told the Australian Energy Council that, and I quote, "The biggest risk to this whole transition is that the general public haven't really cottoned on to the fact that there's a cost to the transition. Governments have made promises about bill reduction, but it is not coming any time soon." A Generator CEO told the survey that, and I quote, "The infrastructure required to do the renewable transition is all far more expensive than anyone expected." Another CEO said that, and I quote, "My feel is that bills will increase for at least the next decade, given the scale of capital being deployed in the industry." Minister, why are you continuing your net zero plans, given that there are predictions that power bills will increase for at least the next decade, when you promised the opposite?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, because it is the cheapest way of modernising Australia's electricity system. And as we go through the challenging national interest task—
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. When Senator Canavan asked that question, you could have heard a pin drop in this place. The minute the minister got to his feet, those on my left thought it was time to interject. It is not. If you can't listen in silence, leave the chamber. Minister, please continue.
And we saw what the alternative might— we had a little glimpse into what the alternative might look like over the miserable decade, the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison, decade of indolence and failure on energy policy. We saw what that did for Australians. What it did was that wrecking impulse that is so fundamental to your approach in this area of policy hurts ordinary Australians. It costs jobs. It costs jobs. It costs jobs when you're in government. The only difference now is that the position that the Liberals and Nationals have adopted is more extreme, more likely to lead to dislocation and disinvestment than the last decade did.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Canavan. Senator McKenzie, your constant interjections are incredibly disorderly and they are rude towards the orders that I'm giving. As I said, if you can't listen quietly and in silence, leave the chamber. Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, in its report, the Australian Energy Council itself noted that its members are concerned, and I quote from the report, that Australia's transition to cleaner energy will come with sustained upward pressure on household and business electricity prices. The report also noted, and I quote, that the large-scale capital investment required to replace and decarbonise has the potential to drive bills higher for years to come. Minister, when will Australians see a reduction in their energy bills?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, it's funny that you mention the Australian Energy Council. The CEO said of that organisation just last week, "We are now on a trajectory for a high renewable system supported by gas, battery storage and pumped hydro, and that is generally going to deliver the lowest cost outcome." She then went on to say, "Keeping coal open for longer is likely to increase costs rather than decrease costs." She then went on to say, "We can't keep coal in the system forever. There are some coal plants that can run for a longer time and are a bit more reliable, but there is a large proportion that do need to exit by 2035, and we can't delay that." I just wonder why. How hard you must have had to search through what energy experts say to find something that even comes remotely close to backing your silly argument.
Thank you, Minister. I think the Minister has concluded. Your second supplementary, Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. The Minister has not answered the question of when power bills will come down. Minister, in the survey, one retail energy sector CEO noted that, and I quote, "The cost of this transition is really going to affect the people who can afford it the least." So the people that are already struggling to pay their power bills are going to get slammed with more cost. And another retail CEO said, and I quote, "So the bottom line is we're going to make a large segment of the population more vulnerable again with electricity." Minister, why are you promising net zero when it's hurting the poorest and most vulnerable in our society the most?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
The plan that has been adopted and implemented by the government is far cheaper than the costly schmozzle that has been authored by you and Mr Joyce and imposed upon these profiles in Courage over here. Like it is cheaper, it is more responsible, it is more reliable, and the truth is that wrecking impulse that has driven the sort of set of politics that you represent. When you wreck, Australians pay. They pay in terms of jobs. They pay in terms of their bills. They've paid the consequences over the course of the last period for the decade of disinvestment that was authored by you.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration, Minister Watt. I thank the Minister for his written response to my last question without notice on refugee numbers. From your reply, Minister, the top 5 countries for our humanitarian program, comprising 14,500 of our 20,000 humanitarian visa intake, 73% are from Afghanistan, Syria, Myanmar, Iraq and Malaysia. 4 of these have Islam as the dominant or state religion. The 5th, Myanmar, is Buddhist, yet the UN Human Rights Commission prioritised Rohingya refugees who are Islamic. It seems deliberate Minister, that your humanitarian visa program is overwhelmingly favouring Islamic refugees over Christian refugees. Why?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Well, thank you, Senator Roberts, for the question. I think the last time you asked me a question about this, I pointed out that the Australian Labor Party, perhaps unlike other parties in this chamber, the Australian Labor Party proudly stands for a non-discriminatory immigration policy. We don't rule people out on the basis of their faith, on the basis of their race, on the basis of the country that they come from. And listening to the list of countries that you just provided to us, I would argue that the common feature of each of those countries is not so much their religion, but the fact that they are war-torn and that they are countries that people are fleeing because of concerns for their safety. Senator McKim seeks to keep interrupting.
Minister Watt, I've got Senator Wong on her feet.
I'm sorry, Senator Payne, you don't want me to take point of order. President, there have been interjections from that particular senator, Senator McKim, through the previous question that was asked by the Greens, and now through this. I would ask you to ask him to cease the interjections on this minister.
Thank you, Senator Wong. I have personally called Senator McKim to account on the previous questions, and I just called order. I am reluctant always to interrupt those that are either asking or answering questions. But Senator McKim, just cease. Thank you. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thanks, President. So, as I was saying, our government and the Labor Party stands for a non-discriminatory immigration policy, and we don't discriminate against people on the basis of their faith. Now, as Senator Ayres was mentioning, I think what we're seeing here and hearing here from One Nation is foreshadowing where we're going to see the coalition end up on immigration policy in a matter of weeks, because we know that's what happened when it came to net zero policy. It started with One Nation railing against wind farms and railing against net zero, and then it spread to the National Party, and then it spread to the Liberal Party, and then it even spread to the so-called moderates in the Liberal Party, who had to cave in to the Conservatives and the Nationals and One Nation on their opposition to net zero. So I think what we're seeing here, I predict we will see within a matter of weeks, is the immigration policy of the Liberal Party. Hello, Senator Duniam, you're in charge now, along with Senator Scarr. And Senator Scarr might have to face the situation where he has to explain to those Brisbane multicultural groups why he's followed One Nation when it comes to immigration policy.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Roberts, order. Senator Roberts first. Senator Roberts, just wait on calming the chamber down. Please continue. First supplementary.
Thank you. Your letter admits Australia has not issued one humanitarian visa in Nigeria, yet the current United Nations Human Rights Commission guidance since 2016 promotes protecting Nigerian Christians from Islamists, citing hundreds, now thousands of deaths. Similar guidance exists for protecting Christians in Islamic Pakistan, Iran, Eritrea and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Minister, are you cherry-picking which United Nations Human Rights Commission guidance you follow to exclude Christians and favour Islam?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. The time for asking has expired. Minister Watt.
No.
Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, it is a person's religion, for instance Christian, in an Islamic country that places them in danger, which is the reason for the United Nations Human Rights Commission guidance in that country for their own safety. Yet your letter says you can't tell me how many of the humanitarian visas issued are for that reason. Isn't that reason in their case file, and wouldn't you have to let the United Nations Human Rights Commission know how many refugees we took and why?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
No.
Senator Babet.
My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Minister Ayres. Minister, the Capacity Investment Scheme is a revenue underwriting scheme which uses taxpayer funds to prop up solar, wind and storage projects aimed at forcing the government's 80% renewable electricity target by 2030. The Herald Sun reported yesterday that through the CIS, taxpayers are underwriting the construction of a $120 million large-scale battery in South Australia, run by energy company Pacific Blue, who are wholly owned by the Chinese government's State Power Investment Corporation, or the SPIC. So, Minister, my question is, how is allowing a foreign authoritarian government to hold influence over Australia's critical energy infrastructure in our national interest at all?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister Ayres.
Well, we've said about the lowest cost approach to building a low-cost, reliable electricity system for Australians. That's the program of effort that we are engaged in. It is the lowest cost approach. It is in the interests of industry and blue-collar jobs in the regions in particular. Foreign investors in Australia's energy infrastructure are subject to the normal scrutiny through the Foreign Investment Framework.
Senator Babet, first supplementary.
Thanks, Minister. So the SPIC, State Power Investment Corporation, is also an active participant in Chinese President Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative, which the US government has labelled an attempt to create economic dependencies and coerce others. Minister, are you happy for Australia to be dependent and coerced by China?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator, the truth is that relying upon the lowest cost option, which is Australian solar and Australian wind in Australia, is absolutely in the interests of our energy security, and I refer you to my previous answer.
Senator Babet, second supplementary.
Minister, Chinese state-owned enterprises are required to give China's intelligence services access to their operations. So it's not just about spying. It gives hostile intelligence services capacity to install malware, kill switches and other forms of technology designed to give China control over critical infrastructure during moments of tension. Minister, are you and your government comfortable with this risk?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister Ayres.
I'm very confident in our foreign investment framework at managing risks of any kind of foreign investment.
Thank you. Senator Chandler.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator Farrell. Last week, the Albanese Labor government signed Australia up to an agreement for a, quote, just, orderly and equitable transition away from fossil fuels. The agreement states its signatories, quote, support the call to advance a roadmap for the transition away from fossil fuels. Coal and gas are Australia's second and third largest exports. Fossil fuels earned $153 billion for Australia in the last financial year. Minister, why is the government working with other countries to end our second and third top exports? And did the government model the cost to the Australian people of ending a quarter of our exports? If so, what is that cost?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Chandler for her first first question.
Order.
First question.
Senator Farrell, I'm sorry. Please resume your seat. Order, Senator Canavan and Senator Whish-Wilson. Order. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, President. And look, the truth of the matter, Senator Chandler, is that in order to get to net zero, a policy that your party used to support, legislated for, then that transition is going to require a transition fuel, and that transition fuel is in this country is going to be gas. And this government makes no apology whatsoever for saying that gas is part of the mix to get to net zero. And I don't believe that there's anything inconsistent with what we signed last week with the policies that this government has, the sensible policies. We're right.
Minister, thank you. Senator Chandler.
Point of order on relevance.
I'm sorry,
President.
Senator Chandler. Order on my right. Order. Order. Minister Gallagher. Senator Chandler.
Thank you, President. Point of order, and it is on relevance. I asked quite specifically about the government modelling of the cost to the Australian people of ending a quarter of our exports. The Trade Minister has gone nowhere near answering that part of the question.
Senator Chandler, there was quite a preamble to that question, and the minister is being relevant to the question. Minister Farrell, please continue.
Thank you, President. Senator Chandler, we don't need any modelling to know that we are going to need gas in the mix to get to net zero.
Senator Canavan.
Senator Canavan, here we are adopting a policy that I assume you support, which is the continued use of gas to get to net zero. There is nothing magical about this.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Chandler, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Labor's international agreement to end our second and third top exports was signed with just 23 other countries, none of whom are among our top 15 trading partners. Countries that signed the agreement represent under 10% of global economic output. Why would the government sign an agreement which restricts our ability to use energy resources but allows 90% of the world's economy to continue to use fossil fuels to take our jobs and our industries?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Chandler for her first supplementary question. I speak with our trading partners all of the time. In fact, last week I met with the European Union, and
very fine.
And can I say, the first thing that they talk to me about, of course, is how can we work together to extract our critical minerals in order to get to that point of net zero by 2050.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Canavan.
The question was an agreement involving 24 countries which did not include the European Union, and now the minister is talking about discussions
Senator
with the European
Canavan,
Union.
the minister is being relevant to the question. Minister Farrell.
So we, unlike when you were in government, Senator Chandler, we try and engage with our trading partners. We try and find out what their issues are, and we try and work with them to resolve the issue. Now, can I just give you one example of that?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Chandler, second supplementary.
Sure,
Order on my right.
Sure, it would have been a good example. Has the government consulted with affected workers in the regions and industry, including the tens of thousands of union members, Senator Farrell, about how it will prevent jobs and investment shifting to competitor countries that have not signed this pledge?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Chandler for her second supplementary question. Look, I was with 700 union members on Saturday night at the Adelaide Convention Centre. I was there. Well, you asked which union it was. It happened to be the Shop Assistants Union, the finest trade union in the country. And can I tell you what those workers wanted to hear about is, amongst other things, there were many things they wanted to hear about. They wanted to know how did we go in getting wheat,
Minister Farrell,
barley.
Please resume your seat. Order on my right. Order. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. I was just wondering whether you might draw the minister's attention to the question, and I was wondering how many members of the STA are involved in mining.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. We don't need the commentary. I will draw the minister to the other union members that Senator Chandler referred to in her question. Minister Farrell, please continue.
Well, I can tell you there's a few of them up at Roxby Downs who Minister Ayres and the Resources Minister met a few weeks ago, who actually provide all the food to the mining workers. Minister Ayres and I were.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cox.
My question is to the Minister for the Environment and Water, Minister Watt. This week, the Senate has the chance to pass landmark reforms to our nation's environment laws that not only will better protect the environment, but also make our economy more productive.
Order.
Can the minister outline for the Senate how the government's reforms will improve the environment and protect it for future generations?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Cox. I would love to do that. Well, this is the week. This is the week that the federal parliament needs to finally pass important and much-needed reforms to our national environment laws. And it's interesting, Senator Duniam, that most of the people over there seem to think that it's not necessary to pass these reforms. We might have a little chat about that later. It's now over 5 years since Professor Graham Samuel tabled his blueprint for reform of these laws. It's over 5 years since Professor Samuel told us that our national environmental laws are fundamentally broken, that they are failing the environment, failing business and failing the general community. So this week it's critical that this parliament comes together to pass reforms to these laws that will deliver real gains for the environment. Gains like creating the first ever National Environmental Protection Agency to be a tough cop on the beat, the establishment of national environment standards and the inclusion of a net gain principle into the environmental offsets regime. The government is very clear about our position on these laws. We've introduced a set of reforms that have now passed the House of Representatives, so the choice is now sitting with the Coalition and the Greens to decide whether they want to work cooperatively with the government to pass these reforms. Of course, the other option that the Coalition and the Greens have is that they sit on the sidelines throwing rocks while their political opponents come and work with us instead. I've made very clear these reforms are going through this week, and it's either going to be with you or it's going to be with you. And it's up to you. If you sit on the sidelines, we go with them. If you sit on the sidelines, we'll go with you. Just have a little think about that as the week rolls on. We all know how it worked out for both these characters over the last federal election when they were sitting on the sidelines throwing rocks and blocking progress. They went backwards, and the Australian people had their say.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Order. Senator Smith. Minister Watt. And Senator Duniam. Senator Cox, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Improving these laws is not only going to be better for the environment, but will also boost productivity by speeding up approvals for key projects. It will also help address some of the long-standing issues in our society, particularly the supply of more housing and the rollout of more renewable energy projects. How will these reforms deal with these issues, and what will the cost be to the economy if these laws are in fact not passed this week?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Cox. Well, we saw in answer to the primary question a number of coalition figures asking what the rush is, so perhaps they might want to listen to this answer, because a key focus of our reforms is removing the duplication in the federal and state approvals and assessment systems for projects, all while maintaining strong environmental standards. I spoke in the previous answer about the benefits for the environment in these reforms, and our laws will also enhance our ability to enter bilateral agreements, a new streamlined assessment pathway and the greater use of regional planning to identify upfront go zones and no-go zones for development in a particular region. Now, these reforms are designed to speed up the delivery of the homes, renewable and other economic projects that we desperately need, because under the current laws that we're seeking to reform, we've seen project approval times blow out from a median time frame of 48 weeks at the turn of the century to 118 weeks now. That's why we need to move on these reforms to get the homes, renewables and other projects we need, and we need to do it this week.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Cox, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The EPBC Act has been around for more than 25 years, and it's been 5 years since an independent review into the Act recommended sweeping changes, most of which have been dealt with in your proposed reforms. The issues with these laws have been well ventilated and are well understood by the community. So why is it so important that these laws are passed by the Senate this week? What are the risks if this is delayed yet again?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Watt.
Well, thanks, Senator Cox. Not only has it been 5 years since we had the Samuels Review handed down to the then Environment Minister, Susan Lee, providing his recommendations, but it's been 2.5 decades since these laws came into effect, and they haven't been properly updated since. In that time, we've seen our natural environment
Minister
go backwards.
Watt, please resume your seat. Senator McKenzie.
Just on a point of order, understanding Order 73.1, questions applied to a piece of legislation that's in front of a committee.
Senator McKenzie, the minister can talk about the bill because the bill hasn't been introduced yet. Minister, please continue.
Well, we'll just have to talk about these environmental reforms that are going to speed up approvals for business and improve protections for the environment. In the last 5 years, since we saw Graham Samuels' review provided to Susan Lee, we've seen our natural environment go backwards, and we've seen really important projects like housing developments, renewables and other projects as well, held up by the red tape which exists under the current laws, and we need to change that. So every day we delay, if we push these reforms back by another few months or another couple of years, what will happen is the environment will keep going backwards and we'll keep seeing those important projects held up. And that will be on the heads of every coalition and Green senator in this place if they fail to work with us to pass the reform.
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.